Hey, everybody, welcome you to this week's Matrexit discussion group call for tactical sovereignty. And we have a friend with us. Jim had a very similar experience in traffic situations or vehicle stops. I'm going to let Jim pick up from there.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of y'all out there probably know me from last decade as Beach House Jim when I was down in Florida. Well, got out of Florida. I've been going up off grid in the mountains of North Georgia and just kind of laying low. But I can't unlearn what I already know is that they've created an organization. And before I get into a little bit and talk about agency and what transpired, I just want to underline some stuff that I had discovered along the way. This organization, this entity, is a sort of trust. And that is backed up if you go look at the Proclamation 2039 signed on March the 6th, 1933 by FDR. He starts off and he talks about that special trust accounts are to be created. And then it goes on later and it talks about the Act of June 20th, 1935, the Social Security Act, signed into law on August 15th. They say, whereas Congress, under the constitutional authority, created special trust accounts on the Act of June 20th, 1935. You know, there's an old saying in another law book that says, let the dead bury the dead. And artificial entities don't have beating hearts and belly buttons. And the question that comes up is first is, what is my relationship to this entity, this all capital letters name and that number that they created? If it is a trust, there's a lot of different roles you can play in a trust, but the three biggies are a creator, a trustee, and a grantor, or trustee and a beneficiary. Well, you didn't grant anything. You didn't create it. You didn't put anything into it. This was all created when you were a baby, and they created this entity and they created a name that sounds like something and gave you a piece of paper to call yourself that. But are you that an artificial entity? Well, clearly you're not the trust and you're not the grantor. They did that. Are you making decisions for that entity? Well, frankly, if you've tried to do anything with it that way, you'll find out you're clearly not. You don't have legal title to it. Legal title is held by the trustee. And we'll get into who the trustees of that entity are. And don't want to trespass on somebody else's property. Let them have their entity. What's important is understand your relationship to it. So we know that the trustee is the principal, and there's some expectations that they have when they give you this piece of paper. And it seems that basically we got a piece of paper from the Social Security Administration on their letterhead that clarified and said that they instead R indicates record Social Security number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is assigned to upper or lower name. He is the legal representative of the number. Is that a principal? Is that the owner? Is that the one with legal or equitable title? No, it's a position of agency. Basically, you have an apparent agency position. And, as we're going through it under corpus juris secundum, it goes into great detail about the laws of agency. But the agent has one basic duty that they have to perform, and that is full knowledge and disclosure to the principal. If that duty is performed, the agent is not liable. That said, here's the thing. I'm clear that I've been operating with apparent authority or implied agency as the general agent by the agency or principal that owns the name. Who owns the name? Well, we just talked a little bit about the U.S. government, and they created the Social Security Administration. And if you go into ssa.gov, and you look for the signatories to the trustee reports. If you want to go direct there, I can read off the URL here. It's http://ssa.gov/OACT/trustees, plural, .html. And it says right there, every year they update that of who are the trustees of the trust. Now, the trustee is the principal. So my job, if there is an implied agency, is to give urgent notice of any claims being brought against the principal's property, against that trust property, against their trust. My whole goal is to be non-liable. I'm not the name. I have no contract. I don't consent. So I crafted a letter, and if you'd like these letters that I came up with, I can share them with you. I really hope that people read and study law to create their own letters in their own words, because your actions need to be written on your heart. I've seen too many people that have taken my materials and gone into a court and think that it's some magic bullet they just hand the judge, and you know that we've talked about this before, Brian, that you do that and the judge is going to test you a little bit. And if you don't seem to know what you're talking about, then you're just masquerading fraudulently in that courtroom and playing cute games, and they're going to throw the book at you. So my letter, I sent this off to the 4 trustees. Primary one is managing trustee, care of the Secretary of the Treasury in Pennsylvania, Ave, Washington. Second was the Secretary of the Department of Labor, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, also in Washington, D.C., and that's in the 4th trustee in Baltimore, Maryland. Here's what we've got to do. I started the administrative process because silence is assent, and all too often these guys, you send them stuff and they remain silent. You got to create a paper path of your acts and actions and performing your sole duty as the general agent of their trust.